Welcome to another edition of Marriage for Better for Worse. Hi, I'm your host, Pastor Bob Moeller, and for the next 30 minutes, we're going to look at relationship questions from a biblical standpoint. Our topic for this program is when the relatives cause trouble. When the relatives cause trouble. It's important to remember I'm not a trained psychologist, psychiatrist, marriage therapist. I'm a pastor who believes that listening, caring, prayer, and God's Word can heal relationships. Well, I'd like to begin this program by reading the familiar words of Genesis chapter 2, verse 24. Some people have said that this is the only premarital advice that God ever specifically gave. Here it is. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. Only one sentence, but so much in the way of powerful truth that can help us, perhaps even straighten out or deliver us from problems with the relatives. One of the most contentious issues in a marriage can be the interference or trouble that relatives can cause in your relationship. Often, one spouse is more committed, attached, and involved to their family than the other is. I'm talking about their family of origin. As a result, they insist on spending more time, that you attend more family events, and in general have a closer level of day-to-day contact than what the other spouse's family has with the two of you. If the family that's closer keeps appropriate boundaries, does not insist that their own events supersede the couple's plans, and does not show unwarranted favoritism to their biological child over their son-in-law or daughter-in-law, things can work quite smoothly. You can actually live next door or upstairs or downstairs, and things will probably be fine. However, if the family, again of origin, chooses to interfere in the conflicts and the unresolved issues of your marriage, and they demand that you drop everything in order to attend a larger gathering of their family members, or if they speak disparagingly of the other spouse, well, trouble is on the way, isn't it? Some of the most heated and intense arguments a couple will ever have will involve their own families, and those arguments can leave the most lasting damage. We have to remember that the old adage, blood is thicker than water, applies, meaning that if you attack my family of origin or if I attack yours, it is going to, in most cases, bring a very swift and intense response. In some cases, it's not the in-laws, the parents, but sisters, brothers, and other family members that are bringing chaos to your relationship. For example, a brother that continually asks for money, a sister who turns out to be a terrible gossip and shares your secrets with everyone, an uncle that makes suggestive remarks or even unwanted sexual advances at an event, an aunt who is a closet alcoholic, and the list can go on and on and on of potential troublemakers in your relationship. So what should a couple do if family members are causing conflict, division, and strife in your marriage? Notice I said, what should a couple do, not what should an individual do, because this has to be approached as a team. It has to be approached as in the oneness that God has designed into the marriage relationship. First of all, you need to recognize God's plan for marriage as found in the book of Genesis. It was repeated by Jesus in Matthew 19, and it was repeated again by Paul in Ephesians chapter 5. Now, whenever God says something 3 times in the scriptures, we ought to take note of it. We need to recognize he's saying something very important. Most of all, we need to obey it. There, God clearly commands that a man should leave his family of origin and be united to his wife to become one flesh. By implication, the woman or wife is expected to do the same with her family. It's not just the man who leaves his family and becomes one, it's also the wife. Both are to transfer, now note what I'm saying here, both are to transfer their first loyalty from their family of origin to their marriage. I'll say it again, it's that important. What the Bible is describing is, in essence, you transferring your loyalty from your family of origin to your new marriage. That doesn't mean you are disloyal to your old family or family members. It just means in priority, your marriage comes first. And when you do not do that, trouble is on the way. Let's talk about the practical implications of this. First, it means that both of you must make a conscious decision to make your marriage and not your family of origin your first priority. Let me say that again. It's a conscious decision. I'm going to make my new marriage, or marriage I've had for 20 years, my first priority over my family of origin. Second, it means if one or more of your family members are causing conflict in your marriage for your spouse, they are causing it for you as well. I don't know if you caught what I said, so I'll repeat it. If your family is causing trouble for your spouse, they are causing trouble for you as well. Well, no, it's my spouse who's upset. I'm not upset at all about them. Listen, if they're upsetting your spouse, they're upsetting you because you two are one. Therefore, what God has joined together, Matthew 19 says, let no man separate, and that no man includes your family. The concept of oneness in marriage means, for example, if something is troubling my spouse, it's troubling me. It is not just your spouse's problem, it is yours as well. And you have an obligation to try and resolve that problem before it threatens to fracture your unity and oneness as a couple. Now let me caution you, if this is going on right now, and you're not facing this, if you're not dealing with it, it is going to begin wearing away at the foundation of your marriage, and the day may come where your spouse has had enough and not willing to put up with it anymore, will deliver an ultimatum. Choose me over your family or I'm leaving or I'm divorcing you. Do you really want it to come to that? Third, it means you have to be willing to make tough decisions to preserve the sacredness and the unity of your marriage. You see, let's be real. If it were a simple problem to solve with the in-laws, it would already be solved, right? If it was a simple problem to be solved with your brother or sister or your cousin, it would already be resolved. The truth of the matter is, these are difficult problems. These are painful problems. These are problems that keep you awake at night. And so you're going to have to make tough decisions. If they were easy, they'd be easy, but they're not. I tell people that usually the solution to their problems is simple, it's just not easy. The solution is simple, it's just not easy. And tough decisions are what marriage can sometimes be all about. Those decisions may include establishing boundaries, clearly articulating them to your family, and being willing to enforce the consequences when your relatives violate the boundaries. Let me go over that again. You establish boundaries, you articulate those boundaries so people know what they are, even what they're supposed to accomplish, and then you enforce them when the first challenges or infringements occur. If, for example, you establish a boundary that you will not be part of a holiday gathering where drunkenness often occurs, and despite assurances to the contrary, sure enough, Uncle Jim gets hammered at Thanksgiving and starts saying all manner of inappropriate things. The result is, the next time you're invited to an event with Uncle Jim, you politely decline. If pressed as to why you're not coming, you explain that an important boundary was violated. Finally, it means that your yes means yes and your no means no. If you say, no, we cannot spend Christmas with you this year as we did last year because of, your relatives need to accept that without objection or pressure. You don't even have to have a compelling negative reason why you won't be there. If you just want to have a Christmas or an Easter or a Thanksgiving or whatever by yourselves, you have the right to do that. Sure, it's fun to be part of family, and sure, that can make it more enjoyable. But again, it is not some type of law that you have to attend, nor have you committed a sin if you will not. Rather, it's a voluntary gathering of people that like each other. And sometimes you can go, sometimes you can't. You shouldn't have to defend that. The overall principle of building a strong family relationships with your marriage is this. Now that you are an adult, you are not obligated to a relationship, I should call it a subjugated or submissive relationship, with any relative as you were when you were a child. Now, you still need to heed the command to honor your father and mother, of course. But now they will have to win the friendship of both of you and your spouse. I think this is something that parents sometimes don't realize. When our kids are growing up in our house, they have no say as to whether or not they're going to attend something or not, in most cases. We're the law, and they have to obey it because they're minors. But when they become majors, when they become adults, when they reach the age of independence or liberation or whatever you want to call it, at that point, if you have not built strong, loving, mutual satisfying relationships with your kids, they may not come home, or at least come home as often as you want. And you may have to make adjustments in how you act or behave or what you say in order to win them back. The truth of the matter is adult relationships, even with a family, are more friendship-based than they are obligation-based. So, you have to make things pleasant when you're together, welcoming, enjoyable, so that you will desire, they will desire to be with you as often as you might want to get together with other good friends. If they make being together uncomfortable, unwelcoming, overall miserable for either two of you, you are not under obligation to regularly show up for family events or holidays. Now again, I think it's only fair that you explain why, and if you are not heard, or you are criticized or rejected for what you have to say, well, so be it. You still have to follow through with what's right. Again, if it's miserable for one spouse because you two are allies, you're wearing the same jerseys, you treat it as miserable for you as well, and you take the appropriate steps. God surely wants extended families to love each other, to enjoy each other's genuine fellowship, and to be the best of friends. That is part of His plan. However, in this fallen world, that's not always possible. And I might add in closing that is why God has created the family, the spiritual family, the family of God. If your own family rejects you, alienates you, you simply can't be with them, well, you have another family, an eternal family, the family of God, that can fill those empty places. Well, let's look at some questions in the amount of time that we have left. What if my wife thinks I spend too much time with my family and I don't see it that way? Well, somebody's right and somebody's wrong, aren't they? Or each of you is a little bit right and a little bit wrong. In those cases, I recommend going to an objective third party, someone who doesn't have a dog in your fight, as it were, who's wise, who's biblically based, a pastor, a leader in the church, maybe a counselor. Share the situation as it exists and listen to what they may have to say. Sometimes outsiders can see the truth of things so much more clearly than we can. We're just too close of it. And if they do give you advice that maybe you're doing too much or too little, you're being too lenient or too stubborn, I would take that to heart. I would listen to their advice. Proverbs tells us if we're to wage war, we need a multitude of counselors. And that victory is found in a variety of people giving us input. My parents live several hours away, while my spouses live just 30 minutes away. Because of the difference in distance, it's just natural that we would spend more time with my family than hers. However, she is coming to resent the lack of seeing her family, and particularly because now there are grandchildren involved. It doesn't seem fair or practical that we should try and see them as much as we see mine, given their great distance. Well, I think distance and cost has to enter into the equation. But I don't think we can necessarily use the excuse, we can't afford this or we don't have time to see them, to deny your spouse more time, both more of quantity and quality time with my parents, simply because they live a great deal away. We can invite them to come see us, which they might be in a better place in life economically and career-wise where they have more freedom to travel. Invite them and welcome them into your home so your spouse can be with her family more. Utilize Zoom and WhatsApp and other social media or applications to be able to see each other face to face, even though you are not next door. It's not the same thing, but it's awfully close to the same thing to be able to talk to your family and see them in person and their inflections, their voice, their faces as you meet with one another. I think it's also fair that you set aside some time in your vacation schedule and free time to travel to go see that other family. No, you can't probably do 50-50, but I think it's more what you're trying to communicate, your heart's intention, that your spouse will deeply appreciate. What if your daughter-in-law seems to really dislike you? When we visit, she rarely responds or speaks to either of us. We send her gifts for things such as birthdays, anniversaries and holidays, but we rarely, if ever, receive anything in return from her. Is there a point where we should just give up trying to build a relationship with her? Well, not everyone in life is going to like you. Not everyone is going to enjoy your company as the next person. I guess one of the things I'm trying to learn in life is to be more objective rather than subjective. That is, I'm not willing to, in every case where someone doesn't want to receive me or welcome me, to take the blame. Now, maybe I need to ask, what am I doing that makes my being with you uncomfortable or reaching out? But many times it's their own issues. And we really don't have control over other people's issues, do we? Not much at all. I like the title of the late gospel Christian country western singer Charlie Daniels. He was a great guy, wasn't he? The title of his autobiography was Don't Count the Empty Seats. And you know, that is one of the most profound things I've heard in the last five years, maybe 10 years. In life, it's so easy to focus on those who don't like you, including family members or in-law children or whatever. Well, why not focus on those who do like you? Why not enjoy the people that do return gifts or phone calls or cards? Why not spend your time and focus on the people you get along with? You know, it's a little bit like being in junior high. Remember the cool table? That's where all the cool kids sat. Now, I never got to sit at the cool table, and I know a lot of people wanted to, but were refused. What makes you cool is that you do exclude other people, right? And that's the way some people live their lives, is that they feel better or elevate themselves by putting others down or excluding them. Well, you know what I did? I didn't care about the cool table. I can honestly say that. I made my own friends. I ate my own lunch. I did what I wanted to do in extracurricular activities and studies and didn't give it a second thought. And let me just encourage you. I know it's family, but if someone is just sending you the signal right now, I don't like you, I don't want you around, well, the serenity prayer says, God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. If you really can't change anything, if courage won't serve you in this case, tranquility will. Just give it to God and pray for the opportunity someday. You know, when relatives reject you, there's one thing you can do that they cannot stop, and that is to pray for them. You can every day lift them up before the throne of God. You can pray for their salvation, or if they're Christians, You can pray for their growth or for God to bless them in different ways. You know, it's really hard to dislike somebody when you're praying for them. There's a principle you can take to the bank. Not praying at them. Oh Lord, bring something to bear that will judge them. No, don't. Praying for them. That whatever is in their heart, if it's bitterness, jealousy, envy, fear, that God will resolve it. My husband's parents seem to have little interest in our children. They gush and pay attention to their other grandchildren, but ours just seem to fall off their radar. It really hurts me to have our kids ignored. Should we say something to them? And if so, who should bring it up? Well, let me just say, from a lifetime of experience, you can go and say, I think you're ignoring our children. You don't show them as much attention. My guess is, in the overwhelming percentage of cases, they may give you lip service and say, oh no, we don't mean to do that. Oh sure, we'll try and do better, but nothing's going to change. Probably nothing's going to change, at least not in the near view. And again, back to don't count the empty seats, okay? If the grandparents don't really show much attention to your children, find some older, godly couples, perhaps in the church. Let them know a little of the situation and see if they might be willing to be more grandparents. I know Cheryl and I were asked to be grandparents by a young couple with 4 children where they don't have a mother anywhere or father anywhere near. And as a result, they need somebody to step into that role, and you don't have to be the biological grandparent to be a grandparent, or a father or mother for that matter, or a brother or sister, or a son or daughter. So again, the family of God can fill a lot of empty places in our lives. When we got engaged, my parents at first refused, or said they were going to refuse to come to the wedding. It's only when I threatened to go ahead with the wedding with or without them that they chose to show up. Now that was several years ago, but the hurt lingers, particularly for my husband. Is there any way we can resolve this so it doesn't go on and harm us as a couple for the rest of our lives? Yes, one word will solve that: forgiveness. You need to forgive your in-laws. I don't know why they said they wouldn't come to the wedding. I don't know why they acted the way they did, but they did what they did, didn't they? And they may never ask your forgiveness. They may never admit they were wrong. Are you to go on being bitter and resentful the rest of your life? I hope not. You see, you can forgive anyone you want to, and they can't stop you, can they? You can forgive anybody on earth, and they can't prevent you from doing that. In fact, the Word of God says in the book of Mark that when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive him, that your Father in heaven may forgive you your sins. It says anyone or anything. That really doesn't sound like there's any fine print to that, is there? Or asterisks. No, it's time you forgive your in-laws for saying what they did about the wedding and just move on. Maybe someday you can reconcile with them over that, but until then, leave it to God. My 2 brothers make plans for their family to be together right in front of my husband and myself. Doesn't that seem a little rude to you? Why aren't they aware of how that makes us feel excluded and unwanted? How should we deal with that? Well, it is very rude to have inside jokes or to have obvious plans to be together or perhaps spend a vacation or have a dinner or have children over. Meanwhile, you're standing there like you're chopped liver, they don't notice you. It's very rude. Let me say what I think is going on. Insecure. Those people are very insecure. If you have to make other people feel excluded and unwanted, there's a lot of insecurity going on there. I mean, it's wrong. I agree with that. It should never happen, but it does. Again, I'm kind of back to the philosophy of don't count the empty seats. If they're going to make plans in front of you, well, then just decide maybe not to show up at events as often. And rather, why don't you make plans with other friends of yours? I think it's a good idea. My parents are divorced. when holidays roll around, it almost takes a computer algorithm to figure out schedules, dinner plans, gift exchange, who should be at what gathering, who should not. There are times I just want to throw up my hands and have Christmas all by ourselves with no controversy for 1 year. Well, why don't you do it? Sounds like a good idea to me. I'm sorry, divorce complicates everything, doesn't it? It doubles the number of parents, grandparents, whatever. It brings all sorts of people into your life that you weren't related to or knew beforehand, and that can be exhausting. Now, in some cases, it can be worked out with some amount of amity, but in most cases, it just gets to be too complex. And if so, why not just go have your own vacation and get together with them on some other holiday and some other case? It's been almost 12 years since my daughter got married. In all those years, he and his wife, she and her husband have never spent one Christmas Eve or Christmas Day with us. Instead, they hold a private celebration with his parents, then go off for a week during Christmas break to some remote location. It looks as if they intend to do that for as long as we're still alive. Any suggestions? And it's presumably so they won't have to be with us or turn down our invitation. Well, you can ask them once, and that's probably all that I would do. Would you like to be together at Christmas? And if they give you an excuse or say no, or tell you we have other plans, well, then just accept it. And again, find people that would like to be with you. When we're together, our in-laws are always making inside jokes with relatives. At times it becomes almost obnoxious. Why do people have to send the signal, we're close with each other, not just you? Well, I think I've covered that already. It's their own insecurity and their own lack of maturity and sensitivity. You know, given all that, I'm not sure I would want to be with them. I'm not sure that I really do miss spending time with people that are operating on that level in life. I don't think so. Well, thanks for being with us. We appreciate your company each week. We invite you to come back as in each episode, we try and explore relational issues from a biblical standpoint. We try and help you to see what God's Word might say. Remember, marriage is for better, for worse, and for keeps.